child's voice silenced a glittering gala, accusing a titan of unspeakable crimes. At Seattle's Thompson Plaza event, Emma, a 10-year-old from Rainier Valley, faced William Thompson, her words exposing his empire of lies. "You took my sister, my life," she cried. As evidence flashed on screens, how did a poor girl with a sapphire ring unravel a millionaire's secrets? It began on a dusty road where Emma fixed a stranger's Porsche, unaware it would change everything. Emma Davis trudged along a dusty road in Seattle's Rainier Valley, her worn school uniform clinging to her slight frame. At 10 years old, she carried a heavy backpack stuffed with textbooks and a small set of tools wrapped in a faded cloth, a keepsake from her late uncle, who taught her everything he knew about machines. Emma dreamed of becoming an engineer, not just to escape the poverty of her neighborhood, but to build schools and workshops for kids like her. Those dreams felt distant, though. When classmates mocked her patched shoes or the stale bread she ate for lunch. Still, she walked with quiet determination, her eyes fixed on the horizon. A sleek Porsche Panamera sat stranded on the roadside, its hood propped open like a wounded animal. A man in a tailored suit paced beside it, his voice sharp as he barked into his phone. "I don't care about the meeting. This damn car won't start, and no mechanic can get here." Nathan Thompson, a 38-year-old real estate tycoon, was a stranger to Rainier Valley's crumbling streets. His world of glass skyscrapers and private jets stood in stark contrast to the sagging houses and potholed roads around him. Frustration etched his face as he ended the call, shoving the phone into his pocket. Emma slowed her steps, her gaze locking on the car. A faint, sweet smell, like syrup, hung in the air. A telltale sign of a coolant leak. She hesitated, then called out, "Mister, I can help with your car." Nathan turned, his brows lifting at the sight of a small girl addressing him. "Thanks, kid, but this is a high-end vehicle. You should head home." His tone was polite but dismissive, the kind reserved for someone clearly out of their depth. Emma shrugged, unfazed, and set her backpack down. "Fancy or not, it's just a machine. I know how to find what's wrong." Before Nathan could protest, she stepped closer, peering into the engine bay with a focus that belied her age. Her small hands moved carefully, avoiding the grime as she scanned the components. Nathan watched, half amused, half curious. "What's the problem?" she asked, all business now. "It overheated, then died," Nathan replied, folding his arms. "Started about 20 minutes ago." Emma nodded, her eyes narrowing. "Did you smell something sweet, like syrup?" Nathan blinked, caught off guard. "Yeah, actually. How'd you know?" "Coolant leak," she said, pointing to a small puddle beneath the car that Nathan hadn't noticed. "Your radiator hose is cracked, that's why it overheated." She knelt, rummaging through her backpack, and pulled out a roll of specialized tape and a packet of sealant. "My uncle made me carry an emergency kit. This'll patch it temporarily, but you'll need a real mechanic soon." Nathan's amusement faded into astonishment as Emma located the leak and applied the fix with practiced precision. She worked methodically, explaining each step as if teaching a novice. "Tape it tight here, add sealant there, and let it sit for 10 minutes. You'll need to pour in some water to replace the lost coolant." Nathan followed her instructions, grabbing bottled water from his trunk while Emma supervised, her serious expression almost making him smile despite his earlier frustration. "I'm Nathan Thompson," he said, extending a hand awkwardly. "You're pretty impressive." "Emma Davis," she replied, shaking his hand with surprising firmness. As their hands met, a glint of blue caught Nathan's eye. A sapphire ring on Emma's finger, too large for her small hand, secured with a bit of thread. His breath hitched. The ring was unmistakable, identical to one he'd given a little girl at Bright Horizons, a children's home he'd visited as a teenager. "That ring," Nathan said, his voice suddenly soft. "Where'd you get it?" Emma glanced down, her expression softening. "It was my mom's. She said it symbolized a promise, but she passed away. I wear it to keep her close." Her voice trembled slightly, and she looked away, brushing a smudge of dirt from her cheek. "She was sick for a long time, and we couldn't afford the hospital. I wanted to help her, but Nathan's chest tightened. He'd grown up with every privilege, never knowing loss like Emma's, yet the ring stirred something deeper, a memory of a promise he'd made and broken. "I'm sorry," he said, meaning it. "Your mom sounds special. What was her name?" "Clara," Emma replied. "She worked as a nurse at a place called Bright Horizons before she adopted me." Nathan froze. Bright Horizons. The name hit him like a punch. The children's home had been shuttered years ago, its land bought up by his adoptive father, William Thompson, for a massive commercial project. The ring, Clara, Emma. It couldn't be a coincidence. "That's an unusual ring," he said carefully. "Can I see it closer?" Emma hesitated, then nodded, slipping it off. The sapphire gleamed, set in aged silver with delicate filigree. Nathan's heart raced. It was the same ring, no question. "I need to ask you something," he said, his voice low. "Would you and your family be willing to talk more about this? I think there's a story behind that ring we both need to understand." Emma studied him, her intelligent eyes weighing his sincerity. "Okay," she said finally, "but only if you promise to tell me why it matters so much to you." Nathan nodded, a flicker of hope igniting. "Deal." As he drove away, Emma's small figure fading in the rearview mirror, he couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter was about to unravel secrets that would change everything. For both of them. Nathan Thompson couldn't sleep that night. The sapphire ring on Emma's finger haunted him, its familiar gleam pulling at memories he'd buried long ago. Bright Horizons, the children's home where he'd volunteered as a teenager, had been more than a charity project. It was where he'd felt human, not just the adopted son of William Thompson, Seattle's ruthless real estate magnate. The ring, given to a little girl named Mia with a promise to return, was a symbol of a vow he'd failed to keep. Now, Emma's words about her mother Clara and her connection to Bright Horizons echoed in his mind, stirring a mix of guilt and determination. In his sleek downtown office, Nathan accessed the Thompson Enterprises archives, his fingers trembling as he searched for records on Bright Horizons. The children's home had been shuttered to make way for Thompson Plaza, a glittering complex of shops and condos that symbolized his father's empire. What he found made his stomach churn. Internal memos revealed William had pressured city officials to close Bright Horizons, citing safety violations that were suspiciously vague. Worse, the children, dozens of them, had been scattered to other facilities, their records incomplete or missing entirely. No one had cared what happened to them. The realization hit Nathan hard. These were kids like Emma, invisible to a world obsessed with profit. Across town, in the cramped Rainier Valley apartment she shared with her Uncle Michael, Emma sat cross-legged on her bed, poring over Clara's worn journal. The pages were filled with cryptic notes, written in the shaky hand of a woman who'd carried heavy secrets. One entry stood out. "Mia must be kept safe. They can never find her. Bright Horizons wasn't what it seemed." Emma's heart raced. Who was Mia, and why had Clara, a nurse at the children's home, written with such urgency? The sapphire ring, heavy on her finger, seemed to pulse with answers she couldn't yet grasp. She traced its filigree, remembering Clara's final days. Too weak to leave her bed, whispering about promises and truths Emma was too young to understand. The next day, Nathan drove back to Rainier Valley, his Porsche now repaired but feeling oddly out of place among the neighborhood's faded storefronts. He found Emma outside her apartment, tinkering with a broken bicycle for a neighbor's kid. Her focus mirrored the way she'd fixed his car, but her eyes carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "You're back," she said, wiping grease from her hands. "What's so special about my mom's ring?" Nathan hesitated, then pulled out a faded Polaroid from his wallet. A teenage version of himself with a little girl at Bright Horizons, her smile bright despite her patched dress. "This is Mia," he said. "I gave her that ring when I was a kid, promised I'd come back. But the home closed and I lost her." His voice cracked. The guilt of that broken promise surfacing after years of suppression. "Your mom worked there. I think she knew Mia, maybe even why the home shut down." Emma studied the photo, her breath catching. Mom never talked much about bright horizons, but she kept this journal. She handed it to Nathan, pointing to the entry about Mia. She wrote about protecting someone. Could it be the same girl? Nathan's pulse quickened. The pieces were starting to fit, but the picture they formed was unsettling. "We need to find out what happened," he said, "together. But I need to talk to your uncle first." Emma nodded, leading him inside. Michael, a burly mechanic with a guarded demeanor, eyed Nathan warily. "Rich guys like you don't show up here for no reason," he said. "What's your angle?" "No angle," Nathan replied, meeting his gaze. "I think Emma's mom was part of something bigger. Something my father might have caused. I want to make it right." Michael softened slightly at the mention of Clara, his sister, but his tone remained firm. "Clara gave everything for Emma. If you're digging into her past, you better not hurt that girl." Emma, listening quietly, spoke up. "Uncle Michael, I need to know why Mom was so scared, why she kept secrets." Her voice trembled as she continued. "Kids at school call me trash because we're poor. Mom believed I could be more, but I feel like I'm letting her down. If this ring means something, I want to understand it for her." Nathan's throat tightened. He'd never faced the kind of cruelty Emma described, never gone to bed hungry or been judged for his clothes. Her resilience, her desire to honor Clara despite the world's harshness, struck a chord deep within him. "You're not letting her down," he said softly. "You're already more than most people I know." They agreed to investigate together, starting with Clara's journal and Nathan's access to Thompson Enterprises records. As they combed through the documents, a chilling pattern emerged. William had paid off inspectors to fabricate violations, ensuring Bright Horizons' closure. The children, treated like collateral damage, were left to fend for themselves in a system that didn't care. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she read about a girl who'd vanished after the closure, her fate unknown. "They were just kids," she whispered. "Like me, nobody fought for them." Nathan placed a hand on her shoulder, his own anger rising. "We're fighting now," he said. "For them, for Clara, for Mia." But as they dug deeper, a name kept surfacing in the records. William Thompson. Nathan's father wasn't just a businessman. He was the architect of a scheme that had torn lives apart. And Emma, with her sapphire ring and Clara's journal, was somehow at the center of it all. The truth, Nathan realized, was far darker than he'd imagined, and it would demand everything they had to uncover. The weight of their discoveries pressed heavily on Nathan Thompson as he drove through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, the city's skyline a distant blur. Clara's journal and the damning records from Thompson Enterprises painted a chilling picture. His adoptive father, William Thompson, had orchestrated the closure of Bright Horizons, scattering children like Emma to serve his own ends. The name Mia, scrawled in Clara's desperate handwriting, felt like a thread connecting Emma to a past Nathan couldn't yet fully grasp. He needed answers, and there was only one person who might have them: his mother, Margaret Thompson, who'd left William years ago after a marriage built on secrets. Nathan arranged to meet Margaret at a quiet park in Capitol Hill, far from the prying eyes of William's influence. Emma insisted on coming, clutching Clara's journal like a lifeline. Her Uncle Michael, still wary of Nathan, agreed only after Emma pleaded, "I need to know who I am, Uncle Michael. Mom would have wanted this." The park was a small oasis of green where Emma's patched jacket and Nathan's tailored coat stood out in stark contrast, a reminder of the worlds that separated them. Margaret arrived, her elegant frame wrapped in a simple scarf, her eyes carrying the weariness of a woman who'd fought too many silent battles. When she saw Emma, she froze, her hand flying to her mouth. You're her," she whispered, tears welling. "Mia?" Emma frowned, confused, but Margaret knelt before her, voice trembling. "I gave birth to twin girls, Mia and Chloe. William told me Chloe died at birth, and Mia... He said you were sent away to protect our family's legacy. I searched for you, but he hid you so well." Emma's breath caught. her small hand tightening around the journal. "You're my mom?" The question hung in the air, fragile and raw. Margaret nodded, reaching out to touch Emma's cheek. For the first time in years, Emma felt the warmth of a mother's touch, a sensation she'd only dreamed of during long nights in Rainier Valley's cold apartment. She leaned into Margaret's embrace, tears spilling over. "I thought I was alone," she murmured. "After Mom, Clara, died. I thought no one wanted me." "You were never alone," Margaret said, her voice breaking. "I kept every letter I wrote to you, hoping one day you'd read them." She pulled a small envelope from her purse, filled with pages of unspoken love. Emma clutched it, overwhelmed, her heart torn between joy and the pain of years lost. She opened up, her voice small but steady. "Kids at school laugh at me because we're poor. I used to collect bottles to buy books, and they called me a scavenger. Clara said I was special, but I never believed her. Until now." Nathan watched, his own eyes stinging. Emma's resilience in the face of cruelty mirrored the strength he'd seen in Mia at Bright Horizons. But her vulnerability cut deeper. He turned to Margaret, his voice low. "Why did William do this? Why separate twins, hide Mia, lie about Chloe?" Margaret's expression darkened. "Your father, William, saw children as assets. He was obsessed with control, with building a perfect heir for his empire. When I had twins, he made plans. Mia was sent to Bright Horizons to be molded in secret, a backup if you ever defied him." The revelation hit Nathan like a blow. He'd always known William was ruthless, but this was monstrous. "And Chloe?" he pressed. Margaret shook her head, pain etching her face. "I don't know. William showed me a death certificate, but after Mia, I don't trust anything he says." Emma's gaze dropped to the sapphire ring, its blue stone glinting faintly. "Clara said this was a promise. Was it yours?" Margaret nodded, her fingers brushing the ring. "It was my grandmother's, meant for my daughters. I gave it to Clara to keep for you, to remind you of who you are." The words unlocked something in Emma, a sense of belonging she'd never known. But with it came anger, sharp and unfamiliar. "Why do people like him get to decide our lives?" she asked, her voice rising. "Kids like me, we don't get choices. We just get pushed around, forgotten." Nathan knelt beside her, his voice firm but gentle. "You're not forgotten, Emma. Not anymore. We're going to find out what William did to you, to Chloe, to all those kids." His promise was as much for himself as for her. He'd spent years building wealth under William's shadow, ignoring the cost of his father's ambition. Now, seeing Emma's pain, he couldn't look away. As they left the park, Emma clutched Margaret's hand, the envelope of letters tucked into her jacket. Nathan glanced at them, a new resolve hardening within him. William's empire was built on lies, and Mia, was proof of its cruelty. But uncovering the truth meant challenging a man who destroyed lives to protect his secrets. Nathan knew the road ahead was dangerous, but for the first time, he felt he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for a sister he'd lost, a mother who'd suffered, and a girl whose courage was rewriting their story. The revelation that Emma was Mia, one of William Thompson's twin daughters, hung over Nathan like a storm cloud as he sat in his Seattle penthouse, staring at the city's skyline. Margaret's confession about William's manipulation, separating Mia and lying about Chloe's death, had shaken him to his core. Worse, the records he and Emma uncovered suggested William's schemes went beyond Bright Horizons, exploiting vulnerable children to secure his empire's future. Nathan knew confronting his adoptive father meant risking everything: his wealth, his status, his safety. But Emma's tear-streaked face in that park, clutching Margaret's letters, made the choice clear. He couldn't let William destroy another life. In Rainier Valley, Emma huddled with her Uncle Michael in their small apartment, Clara's journal open on the table. Margaret's words echoed in her mind. "You were never alone." For the first time, Emma felt anchored, but the truth about William's cruelty fueled a fire within her. He took my sister, my mom, my whole life, she told Michael, her voice trembling with anger. Kids like me don't get justice, but I want to fight for it. Michael, his weathered face softening, nodded. Clara would be proud, Emma. But this man's dangerous. We need a plan. Nathan arrived bringing a stack of documents from Thompson Enterprises. Among them was an invitation to the upcoming Thompson Plaza Gala, a lavish event to celebrate William's latest triumph. This is our chance, Nathan said, spreading the papers out. The gala will have media, city officials, everyone. We expose William there publicly with proof he can't bury. Michael frowned, skeptical. You're talking about taking down one of Seattle's most powerful men. He'll crush us. Emma's gaze hardened. He's already crushed so many. Those kids from Bright Horizons, they're out there, lost, because of him. We can't let him keep winning. Her words, fierce yet fragile, stirred Nathan. She was just a child, yet her courage outshone his years of calculated ambition. He thought of her stories, collecting bottles to buy books, enduring taunts for her poverty, and felt a pang of shame for his privileged ignorance. The door opened, and Margaret entered, followed by Lauren, Nathan's fiancée. Lauren's presence surprised Emma, who'd only heard of her as the polished heiress to a hotel dynasty, but Lauren's eyes held a quiet intensity as she spoke. I know why William hid you, Emma. Because I'm Chloe, your twin. The room fell silent. Lauren pulled a small photo from her purse. A baby with a sapphire ring identical to Emma's, given to her by her adoptive mother. I found out last year when my father confessed on his deathbed. William sold me to a wealthy family, a transaction to secure his alliances. Emma's heart raced as she stepped toward Lauren, their hands meeting in a tentative clasp. You're my sister, she whispered, tears spilling over. Lauren nodded, her own eyes glistening. I grew up with everything, private schools, vacations, but I always felt empty, like something was missing. Now I know it was you. The sisters embraced, their shared loss and newfound bond a quiet defiance against William's schemes. Emma's voice broke as she said, I want to make things right, for us, for all the kids he hurt. Will you help? Lauren's resolve matched Emma's. I'm in. I have access to William's private emails, proof of his bribes and cover-ups. We'll use them at the gala. Nathan outlined the plan. Lauren would ensure Nathan was added as a speaker, framing it as a surprise announcement about their engagement. Michael, posing as event staff, would handle technical setup to display their evidence. Margaret would provide testimony about William's lies, and Emma would stay hidden until the moment was right, her presence a powerful symbol of his crimes. But William wasn't idle. A chilling letter arrived at Emma's apartment, unsigned but unmistakable. Stop digging, or your family pays the price. Michael's hands shook as he read it, his protective instincts flaring. This is what rich men do, he said bitterly. They buy silence, ruin lives. Clara saw it at Bright Horizons. She quit because she wouldn't play their game. Emma's jaw tightened. I'm not afraid. Clara fought for me. Now it's my turn. Nathan admired her bravery, but felt the weight of their risk. William's influence reached deep, politicians, judges, even police. Exposing him could cost them everything. The grand ballroom of Seattle's Fairmont Olympic Hotel shimmered with opulence, its chandeliers casting a golden glow over tables adorned with roses. The Thompson Plaza Gala was a spectacle of wealth, attended by Seattle's elite, city officials, and media, all gathered to celebrate William Thompson's latest triumph. But beneath the polished surface, tension crackled. Nathan Thompson stood backstage, his heart pounding as he clutched a USB drive containing William's incriminating emails, provided by Lauren. Emma, hidden in a nearby suite with Margaret, gripped her sapphire ring, her small hands trembling with resolve. Tonight, they would expose William's crimes, or lose everything. The plan was set. Nathan would take the stage, Lauren would signal Michael to project their evidence, and Margaret would join Emma to confront William publicly. But William's earlier threat, stop digging, or your family pays, loomed large. Nathan spotted Lauren across the room, her elegant gown masking her nerves as she nodded subtly. Michael, disguised as a technician, was in position at the audio-visual controls. Everything hinged on perfect timing. But a sudden commotion at the entrance made Nathan's stomach lurch. Extra security guards, William's men, were checking IDs with unusual scrutiny. He texted Michael, "Something's wrong. Be ready for Plan B." As the MC introduced William, the crowd erupted in applause. William strode to the podium, his silver hair and commanding presence radiating power. "Thompson Plaza represents Seattle's future," he declared, his voice smooth. "A legacy built on vision and strength." Nathan's jaw tightened. That legacy was built on lies, on children like Emma and Lauren, torn from their families for profit. William's gaze swept the room, lingering on Nathan with a chilling smile. "And now, I invite my son, Nathan Thompson, to share exciting news about our family's future." The spotlight found Nathan, and he stepped forward, his pulse racing. Years of living under William's control, of ignoring the cost of his empire, had led to this moment. "Thank you, William," he said, taking the microphone. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. "Before we celebrate Thompson Plaza, let's talk about what stood on that land before: a children's home called Bright Horizons." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. William's smile faltered, but he stayed silent, his eyes narrowing. Nathan pressed on. Bright Horizons was closed to make way for profit, its children abandoned. But that was just the start. My father orchestrated a scheme to manipulate lives, separating families, falsifying records, even silencing those who resisted. The screens behind him flickered as Michael uploaded their evidence. Emails, memos, payment records showing William's bribes to officials and cover-ups of missing children. Gasps echoed as the crowd saw proof of William's crimes. William lunged for the microphone. "This is nonsense! My son is delusional." But before he could continue, Margaret and Emma emerged from the wings, their sapphire rings gleaming under the lights. Emma's small frame stood tall, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You took my sister, my mom, my life. You treated kids like me as pawns." Her words, raw and unyielding, silenced the room. Reporters scrambled to take notes, cameras flashing. Margaret stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. "William told me my daughter Chloe died at birth and hid Mia at Bright Horizons. He lied to control us all." The crowd parted as a frail figure appeared. Clara, Emma's adoptive mother, alive after faking her death to protect Emma. "I heard William's plans," Clara said, her voice hoarse. "He wanted Mia as a backup heir, a tool for his empire. I took her and ran." William's face twisted with fury. "You're all liars," he roared, but his voice cracked as Lauren approached, holding a second USB drive. "These are your private communications," she said, her tone icy. "Bribes, threats, even orders to eliminate threats like Clara's brother." She turned to the crowd. "I'm Chloe, the twin William sold to secure his alliances. He thought he could own us, but he was wrong." The room erupted as FBI agents stormed in, led by a stern-faced woman. "William Thompson, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering," she announced. William's face drained of color, but he laughed, a hollow sound. "You think you've won, Nathan. You're one of mine, too. My blood, abandoned because you weren't perfect enough." The revelation hit Nathan like a blade, but Emma grabbed his hand, her small grip grounding him. "You're my brother," she whispered. "That's what matters." As agents led William away, Emma stepped to the microphone, her voice shaking but clear. "This isn't just about him. It's about kids like me, who get forgotten because we're poor, because we don't matter to people like him. Justice means giving us a chance, a voice." Her words, simple yet profound, moved the crowd to silence, then applause. Reporters rushed to capture the moment, a child from Rainier Valley standing against an empire. Nathan looked at Emma, Lauren, Margaret, and Clara, their faces lit with quiet strength. They'd risked everything to expose William, not for revenge, but for those who'd been silenced. The gala, meant to glorify William's legacy, had become his downfall. But as the crowd surged with questions, Nathan knew the fight wasn't over. William's parting words echoed. He had secrets even Nathan didn't know. For now, though, they'd struck a blow against a system that crushed the vulnerable and Emma's voice had lit a spark that wouldn't fade.